So let's do a Q&A. Is Sue here? Yeah. We got Kevin, Rachel. We're all here, right? Yeah. Jeff, you still here? Awesome.
So how do we make a conclusion, in any kind of a conclusion, when we're dealing with something that has such wide variety, has virtually infinite variety, and is, you know, at the Techion Institute, they're talking about 75 or so cannabinoids down the list have significant impact. So all the research is being done, isn't it just garbage?
If we can get a registry that has at minimum, you know, let's say 100,000 patients in there that are guiding us about what they're using to treat what ailments, then slowly we can figure out what varieties they're migrating towards. If you're Parkinson's patient and you tell me your tremors are improved with these certain varieties, we'll be able to see trends in larger data sets that then can fuel controlled trials, because then we can narrow it down to a few chemovars that might be beneficial and then study those in a controlled trial with 3 or 4 treatment arms and compare them head to head and see what performs the best. That's my best strategy. I'm here with these guys.
Well, and actually, the notion you bring up is not a problem inherent to cannabis. It's inherent to food and any sort of herbal product. So like when broccoli is good for you, what type of broccoli do you buy, right? Like how do you quantify that down? So I think what you do is, and we see a lot of the Canadian LPs doing this, is that they now create a standardized extract that's quantified and known that they can reproduce, and then they're trying to get those into clinical trials. So that at the result of the clinical trial, it's not cannabis that showed a reduction in pain, it's this specific extract produced by Canadian company X. And here's a known constituent profile, and it comes to a local store near you because they produce it standardized and consistent.
Number one, you look at the clinical outcomes. Number two, you take whatever medicinal plant, we're not just talking about cannabis here, you run complex statistics on quantity of constituents, and then when you have enough data, you can actually associate those two together, and now you've got something real.
Okay.
Why does the narcotics business grow opium?
Yeah, let's be really clear that opium isn't one constituent, right? And that's a very complex mix, much like a cannabis resin would be. So there will be people that claim, and there's not a lot of opium smokers in this room probably, but some of you, but there will be people that say they really prefer smoking opium over the opioid pharmaceuticals.
Different question, really. They're growing it in Spain and everywhere, and they turn it into APIs, which is completely purified, and then make pills out of it. So why can't they just make it? Is it cheaper to grow it and purify it than to make it in the lab?
It's a matter of chemical synthesis. So plant molecules. This is a great topic that I'm gonna. If I start rolling back in your head, I'll stop. But
yeah, okay.
if you look at a chart of chemical space, this is a 3D graph. What you'll find is that the synthetic molecules go extremely to the right, whereas natural product molecules that come from microbes, from plants, they are spread out all over the graph, and so they tend to be actually a little more complex than stuff we can do in the laboratory. And so we have molecules that are. This is why nature is so beautiful. It has, our genes know this from millions of years of eating plants, right? Our genes know a lot of these compounds, whereas a lot of these synthetics, that, although they're simpler, our bodies have never seen them. Now, that's not to say that they don't work, but if you look at the adverse event profile of, well, let's look at the numbers. About 100,000 people die every year from properly prescribed pharmaceuticals. That makes pharmaceuticals one of the biggest killers of anything in the United States.
Third leading cause of death.
There you go. So, the argument that plants aren't safe is not about public safety. It's about economics, folks.
Going back to your second question, here's the interesting thing about what GW did. Epidiolex is Schedule 5. What is Epidiolex? It's this bottle with the carrier oil and 99.7% CBD. That's Schedule 5. Up until
from a hemp plant with the definition of.
So this gets really clear. So CBD is still a Schedule 1 drug.
Right.
Epidiolex is a Schedule 5 drug. And if you look at their manufacturing processes, it's a Schedule 1 drug until that CBD pops into that bottle and it becomes Epidiolex, then it becomes Schedule 5. But everything else prior to that is Schedule 1. Same with Marinol. Marinol, once it's in sesame oil in a pill, it becomes Schedule 3, I believe. but all your prior handling is a Schedule 1 handling until that THC pops in that pill and becomes Schedule 3. So CBD is still Schedule 1 today. Epidiolex is Schedule 5. Hemp-derived CBD, because of the Farm Bill, is no longer scheduled. That's the weird conundrum. So if you get CBD from marijuana, or you make it in a lab, or you derive it from anything except from hemp, you're dealing with a Schedule 1 drug. Okay, now, to get back to your real question. So here's the problem that has happened. It comes down to who gets to a substance first. Okay, so the FDA, in the eyes of the FDA, here's what happens. You can't own a naturally occurring product, right? But they wanted to incentivize pharma to do research on naturally occurring products, right? Pharma ideally likes to invent something, new chemical entity, an NCE, right? Push it through trials. That way, if it shows up anywhere in the world, they can sue, they can stop, they can block you, right? It's their compound, they own it. A naturally occurring compound, they can't own outright. So what the FDA said was, okay, let's make a deal. If you file an investigational new drug application and begin research on a naturally occurring compound, before it is sold as a supplement, we're going to basically hand it over to you, and it's yours now. It's a pharmaceutical, right? And the reason they did this in their mind was, well, what we don't want to happen is a pharma company spends $800 million, gets this fish oil FDA approved, and then some people are like, well, I'm just going to get some fish and call it a natural supplement, sell it in CVS, right? So that is the danger that's happening. So pharma has already laid claim not just to THC since 1986, or CBD as of, I think, 2011 is when they filed their IND, but they have INDs on CBDV and THCV, like GW has INDs across all the board. So technically, yeah, so technically, you can't sell any of this stuff. If your product contains any CBD, you are kind of violating the kind of first come, first serve thing that GW now is claiming. That's why the day the Farm Bill passed, the FDA came out and said, not a scheduled drug, but this is a pharmaceutical drug. Okay, so if federal legalization of cannabis happened tomorrow, technically the FDA would come out and say the same thing. Your product has THC in it. THC has been a pharmaceutical product since 1986. You can't sell this as a supplement unless you're FDA approved.
The Farm Bill did not delineate how the FDA and the DEA were going to allow us to share and sell and process CBD products. We don't know yet. So honestly, all those folks out there that are making cosmeceuticals and nutraceuticals, we don't know if you're actually going to be able to continue to do that.
Yeah.
So some food for thought.
A couple things I forgot is very important. This is, I love doctor training business. I have 4 doctors in the family that don't know anything about marijuana. You have the experienced doctors here. They're a fraction of 1% of 1% of 1% of the country. That's a huge industry in itself. We don't know what the doctors will be able to prescribe or recommend down the road. Doctor training. You mentioned regulatory. You're involved in regulatory. So I think, why does my mother have to go to a bud tender and go, I have joint pain, what do I do? Why shouldn't they be able to sit down with you, spend an hour with you as a consult, get them comfortable, show them how to dose it for them, and let them go out with the product. I'm tired of people having to go to the store to buy CBD, CBN, THC, to be able to get doctor, new type of clinics, smart clinics, doctor training. These are areas I like. The other area, you're rolling the dice with the government and the lobbyist. Who's going to win? Is it big pharma's going to win? Is it alcohol? Because this is big business, and the amount of dollars about to be spent on lobbyists are going to go through the roof.
And you got to remember, there's the home grow, right? In a lot of these legal states, at least on the West Coast, patients can grow their own product, and it's broadly working. They don't know what that is.
You don't know if it goes
federally. They don't know what it is, and it's good enough for them, right?
Awesome.
And so we need to protect the consumers' rights to grow their plants in the states where they are allowed to. Empower them to maybe test their products at an affordable rate so that they know what they're using, again, to fuel the database. And yeah, comes down to rules and regulations, but informed rules and regulations. I am on the Oregon Cannabis Commission because there has never ever been a clinician in the space on any of these regulatory boards. Why is that? And they're coming up with rules and regulations that make absolutely no sense. They're not based in science, evidence. Prohibition wasn't based in science or evidence, right? But so that we're sort of fighting an uphill battle here.